Holy fucking shit. It is like 1:30 a.m. Ishan and me just walked through Lisbon. We had this amazing time. Really, really good deep talks. Was intense, was beautiful, was deep. I really enjoyed it. It really, really was super nice. Yeah. I really, really did enjoy it. And yeah, it was nice. Sure, it was nice. And I don't know what he's doing, but he's such a good listener. Such a good listener. And all my insecurities and this and that, and I just want to keep talking. I don't want to shut the fuck up. I want to keep telling stories, when I keep talking about this and that, and my goals, my aspirations, and my past. And I talked to him about my high school love, and talked about his past, talked about my future, about his future, about anything. Yes. Truly, truly. Anyway, long story short, Bible study every morning 20 minutes, every evening 20 minutes. Today, you don't know which day it is, because I didn't tell you, but I'm gonna take out a pen from here, my Wie im Himmel, so auf Erden pen, which I got from the Explo, and I'm gonna keep reading. On page 195 of Judges 20:24. So the next day they went out again to fight against the men of Benjamin. But the men of Benjamin killed another 18,000 Israelites, all of whom were experienced with this word. Then all the Israelites went up to Bethel and wept in the presence of the Lord and fasted until evening. They also brought burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. The Israelites went up seeking direction from the Lord. In those days, the Ark of the Covenant of God was in Bethel, and Phinehas, son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron, was the priest. The Israelites asked the Lord, "Should we fight against our relatives from Benjamin again, or should we stop?" The Lord said, "Go. Tomorrow I will hand them over to you." So the Israelites set an ambush all around Gibeah. They went out on the third day and took their positions at the same place before. When the men of Benjamin came out to attack, they were drawn away from the town, and as they had done before, they began to kill the Israelites. About 30 Israelites died in the open fields along the roads, one leading to Bethel and another leading back to Gibeah. Then the warriors of Benjamin shouted, "We're defeating them as we did before." But the Israelites had planned in advance to run away so that the men of Benjamin would chase them along the roads to be drawn away from the town. When the main group of Israelite warriors reached Baal Tamar, they turned and took up their positions. Meanwhile, the Israelites hid in ambush to the west of Gibeah, jumped up to fight. There were 10,000 elite Israelite troops who advanced against Gibeah. The fighting was so heavy that Benjamin didn't realize the impending disaster, so the Lord helped Israel defeat Benjamin. And that day the Israelites killed 25,100 of Benjamin's warriors, all of whom were experienced swordsmen. Then the men of Benjamin saw that they were beaten. The Israelites had retreated from Benjamin's warriors in order to give those hiding in ambush more room to maneuver against Gibeah. Then those who were hiding rushed in from all sides and killed everyone in the town. They had arranged to send up a large cloud of smoke from the town as a sign. When the Israelites saw the smoke, they turned and attacked Benjamin's warriors. By that time, Benjamin's warriors had killed about 30 Israelites, and they shouted, "We're defeating them as we did in the first battle." But when the warriors of Benjamin looked behind, and they saw the smoke rising into the sky from every part of the town, the men of Israel turned and attacked. At this point, the men of Benjamin became terrified, because they realized disaster was close at hand. So they turned around and fled into the Israelites fled before the Israelites towards the wilderness. But they couldn't escape the battle, and the people who came out of the nearby towns were also killed. The Israelites surrounded the men of Benjamin and chased them relentlessly, finally overtaking them east of Gibeah. At that day, 18,000 of Benjamin's strongest warriors died in battle. The survivors fled into the wilderness towards the rock of Rimmon, but Israel killed 5,000 of them along the road. They continued to chase down until they had killed another 2,000 near Gidom. So that day, the tribe of Benjamin lost 20,000 strong warriors armed with swords, leaving only 600 men who escaped to the rock of Rimmon, where they lived for 4 months. And the Israelites returned and slaughtered every living thing in all the towns, the people, the livestock, and everything they found. They also burned down all the towns they came to. Judges 21. Israel provides wives for Benjamin. The Israelites had vowed at Mitzpah, "We will never give out our daughters in marriage to a man from the tribe of Benjamin." Now the people went to Bethel and sat in the presence of God until evening, weeping loudly and bitterly. "O Lord, God of Israel," they cried out, "why has this happened in Israel? Now one of our tribes is missing from Israel." Early the next morning, the people built an altar, presenting their burnt offerings and peace offerings on it. They said, "Who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mitzpah when we held our assembly in the presence of the Lord?" At that time they had taken a solemn oath in the Lord's presence, vowing that everyone who refused to come would be put to death. The Israelites felt sorry for their brother Benjamin and said, "Today one of the tribes of Israel has been cut off. How can we find wives for the few who remain, since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them our daughters in marriage?" So they asked, "Who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mitzpah when we assembled in the presence of the Lord?" They discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had attended the assembly, for after they counted the people, no one from Jabesh Gilead was present. So the assembly sent 12,000 of their best warriors to Jabesh Gilead with orders to kill everyone, including women and children. "This is what we are to do," they said. "Completely destroy all the males and every woman who is not a virgin." Among the residents of Jabesh Gilead, they found 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and they brought them to the camp of Shiloh in the land of Canaan. The Israelite assembly sent a peace delegation to the remaining people of Benjamin, who were living at the rock of Rimmon. Then the men of Benjamin returned to their homes, and the 400 women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared were given to them as wives. But there were not enough for all of them. The people felt sorry for Benjamin, because the Lord had made this gap among the tribes of Israel. So the elders of the assembly asked, "How can we find wives for the few who remain, since the women of the tribe of Benjamin are dead? There must be heirs for the survivors, so the entire land of Israel is not wiped out. But we cannot give them our own daughters in marriage, because we have sworn with a solemn oath that anyone who does this will fall under God's curse." Then they thought of an annual festival of the Lord held in Silo, south of Lebanon and north of Bethel, along the east side of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem. They told the men of Benjamin who still needed wives, "Go and hide in the vineyards. When you see the young women of Shiloh come out for their dances, rush out from the vineyards, and each of you can take one of them home to the land of Benjamin to be your wife. And when their fathers and brothers come to us in protest, we will tell them, 'Please be sympathetic. Let them have your daughters, for we didn't find wives for them when we destroyed Jabesh Gilead. We are not guilty of breaking the vow, since you have not actually give your daughters to them in marriage.' So the men of Benjamin did as they were told. Each man caught one woman as they danced in celebration, and carried her off to his wife. They returned to their own land, and they rebuilt their towns and lived in them. Then the people of Israel departed by tribes and families, and they returned to their own homes. In those days Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. Wow. My eyes always just fucking fall asleep. It's insane. Maybe you can see it on the video, but it's 1.5 more pages. Ruth. Elimelech, Ruth 1. Elimelech moves his family to Moab. The days when the judges ruled in Israel, a severe famine came upon the land. A man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethel in their land of Judah, and when they reached Moab, they settled there. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons named Moabite women. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orphra, and the other one named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Mahlon and Chilion died. This left Naomi alone with her 2 sons and her husband. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed people in Judah and giving them good crops again, so Naomi and her daughter-in-law are going to leave Moab to return to their homeland. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out the practice. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from her place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judea. But on the way, Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's homes and and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husband, to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage. Then she kissed him goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. No, she said, we want to go with you to your people. But Naomi replied, why should you go on with me? I can still have birth, and I can still give birth to other sons who could grow to be your husbands. No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I am too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, and I were to get married tonight and bear sons, what then? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fist against me. And again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung tightly on Naomi. Look, Naomi said to her, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her goods. You should do the same. But Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn you back. Whenever I go with you, whenever you live, you will live. Your people will be my people, and God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything out of death to separate us. When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said nothing more. The two of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, this entire town was excited by their arrival. Is it really Naomi? They asked. Don't call me Naomi, she replied. Instead, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away, fool, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me? So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by her daughter-in-law Ruth, the young Moabite woman. They arrived in Bethlehem in late spring at the beginning of the barley harvest. Ruth works in Boaz's field. Now there was a wealthy and influential man in Bethlehem named Boaz, who was a relative of Naomi's husband, Elimelech. On the day Ruth of the Moabites said to Naomi, let me go out to the harvest field to pick up the stalks of grain left behind by anyone who is kind enough to let me do it. Naomi replied, all right, my daughter, go ahead. So Ruth went out to gather grain behind the harvesters. And as it happened, she found herself working in a field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law, Elimelech. While she was there, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you, he said. The Lord bless you, the harvesters replied. Boaz asked his foreman, who is that young woman over there? Who does she belong to? The foreman replied, she's a young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if she could gather grain behind the harvesters. She has been hard at work ever since, except for a few minutes of rest in the shelter. How does the Lord describe her? Boaz went over and said to Ruth, listen, my daughter, stay here with us when you gather grain. Don't go in any other fields. Stay right behind the young men working in my field. See which part of the field they are harvesting, and then follow them. I have warned this young man not to treat you roughly. And when you are thirsty, help yourselves to the water they have drawn from the well. Ruth fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. "What have I done to deserve such kindness?" she asked. "I'm only a foreigner." Yes, I know," Boaz replied, "but I also know about everything you've done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I have heard how you left your father and mother in your own land to live here among complete strangers. May the Lord, the God of Israel, may the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done." "I hope I continue to please you, sir," she replied. "I have confronted me by speaking so kindly of me, even though I am not of your workers." In the meantime, Boaz called her. "Come over here and help yourself to some food. You can dip your bread in the sour wine." So she sat with his harvesters, and Boaz gave her some roasted grain to eat. She ate all she wanted and still had some left over. When Ruth went back to work again, Boaz ordered his young men, let her gather grain right among the slaves without stopping her, and pull out some heads of barley from the bundle and drop them on purpose for her. Let her pick them up and don't give her a hard time. So Ruth gathered barley there all day, and when she beat out the grass, So Ruth gathered barley there all day, and when she beat out the grain that evening, it filled an entire basket. She carried it back into town and showed it to her mother-in-law. Ruth also gave the roasted grain to what was left over from her meal. "Where did you gather all this grain today?" Naomi asked. "Where did you work? May the Lord bless the one who helped you." So Ruth told her mother-in-law about the man in whose field she works. She said, "This man I work with today, his name's Boaz. May the Lord bless him," Naomi told her daughter-in-law. "He's showing his kindness to us as well as to your dead husband." That man is one of our closest relatives, one of your family redeemers. Then Ruth said, "What's more, Boaz even told me to come back and stay with his harvesters until the entire harvest is completed." "Good," Naomi explained. "Do as he says, my daughter. Stay with this young woman right before the whole night. You might be harassed in other fields, but you'll be safe with him." So Ruth worked alongside the women in Boaz's fields and gathered grain with them until the end of the barley harvest. Then she continued working with them throughout the wheat harvest in early summer, and all the while she lived with her mother-in-law. Zeitungsstätte PM. Holy shit, I'm so tired. Good night.